And she says, submarine races, Johnny. Well, there's no water around here.
But, good one, Johnny, but seriously, what has this got to do with Operation Security or OPSEC?
Why, nothing, Doc. And that's what makes it so gosh darn funny. But what isn't funny, Doc, are those comedies. And that's why I'm going to keep telling you about Operation Security, or OPSEC. We've already established, Doc, that we have potentially 9,896.248 unclassified events that need to take place before your atomic test. Now what we have to determine, Doc, of those 9,896.248 events might contain critical, sensitive information, Doc. Bits and pieces, pieces of the puzzle, if you will, Doc. Pieces of the puzzle that might give away the whole picture.
I think I've got it, Johnny. The test date, the time,
That's right, Doc. Keep going.
size of the payload, the altitude detonation, shipment of atomic materials,
That's right, Doc.
atomic weapons technology.
And 100 more, Doc, but I think you've got it.
Okay, Johnny, so what's next?
Well, what's next, Doc, is we figured out our critical information, but we have to ask ourselves, Doc, we have to ask ourselves, who is the threat?
Why, that's easy, Johnny. Those gosh darn commies.
That's right, Doc. Commies are everywhere. And that's why we have to be so careful about protecting our critical information. Why, if we don't protect our critical information, Doc, before you know it, commies will have 1,000 atomic missiles pointed at us. And we can't have that, Doc. We just can't have it.
Calm down, Johnny. That will never happen, and you know it.
Well, maybe not, Doc. But protecting America's atomic secrets has to be our #1 priority. Why, just look what Julius and Ethel Rosenberg did, Doc. We can't let that happen here, Doc. We can't let that happen on our watch.
Okay, Johnny, okay. So what's next? How do we keep the commies away from our secrets?
What we have to determine, Doc, is just how vulnerable our information is.
Spies are everywhere, Johnny. I would say that every bit of our sensitive information is subject to collection by the enemy.
It is, Doc, but let me tell you this. You know what, Doc? We're the greatest nation on earth. The greatest nation on earth. We have technology, and that gives us an edge, Doc, but I gotta tell you, even with all that, our information, our critical information, why, it's still very vulnerable, Doc.
Sure, it's vulnerable, Johnny. We all get that. But what's the risk to the information?
Well, of course, that depends on the sensitivity of the information, Doc. But let me remind you, Doc, we're not just talking about classified information. Well, heck no. We're talking about that stuff you mentioned earlier. All that sensitive but critical information that is critical to our operations. And if you think about it, Doc, the unclassified information is at a greater risk because it's easier for the commies to get their grubby paws on. Why, just think about this, Doc. Why, a commie? Well, maybe he's just having coffee with one of his comrades, and he overhears somebody who works out here talking about what they do out here. Well, that would be bad, Doc. Or maybe they read it in a newspaper, Doc. Or maybe they just sit through our trash and they get it that way, Doc. Or maybe a girl commie makes nice to one of our boys out here, Doc, and gets him to talking. Well, that would be no good, Doc. That would just be no good. So I would say, Doc, there's just 1,000 ways for the commies to get their grubby paws on our information. So to answer your question, Doc, I would say the risk to our information is very high. Very high indeed. Very high indeed.
If the risk is so high, then why aren't we protecting this information?
Great question, Doc, but let me tell you this. Operation Security, or OPSEC, has the answer.
Somehow, I knew it would.
Well, of course it does, Doc. Countermeasures, that's the answer to the question, Doc. We need to use countermeasures to protect that critical information that you had mentioned earlier.
Sounds good to me, Johnny, but I'm an atomic scientist. I work on data and facts, so give it to me straight.
Sure, Doc, sure. Well, let's say one of the threats is all those pesky newsmen that come out for your atomic test. Well, we don't want them getting any of our sensitive information and putting it in their fish wraps, do we, Doc? No, sir. So how's about we create a place for them far away from the test where they can see the test but can't overhear or figure out any of our sensitive information?
How about we make everyone wear badges, Johnny? Badges that show security clearance so we can determine if someone is authorized in our sensitive areas.
Sure, Doc, sure. And if I know anything about spies, Doc, it's that they're suckers for a beautiful dame. So how's about we find us a Miss Atomic Bomb? With her around, the spies will be chasing after her. We'll plumb forget about chasing our secrets.
Sounds great, Johnny. Let me try another one.
I liked your last one, Doc. Go ahead.
How about we build a wall 20,000 feet high around the atomic test site? We'll paint it sky blue. It's in the desert. The weather never changes here anyway. I don't think anyone will notice.
You know, Doc, before I came out here, everyone told me what an odd group of fellows you atomic scientists are, and until this very moment, I had no idea what they were talking about.
Be that as it may, Johnny, this wonder program of yours called Operation Security,
Or OPSEC.
is just cooler than absolute zero. Why, I dare say that Operation Security
Or OPSEC.
will keep the Atomic Bomb Commission and the 48 great states of America safe and well into the 1970s. Or beyond.
And if you follow me this way, I'll show you what an office would have looked like at the Nevada test site back in the 1950s.
That looks freaky. That looks freaky. That looks freaky-ish.
Okay, well, if you guys would like to follow me this way, we can go and watch a movie that'll teach you all about fission.
It's the drink that you don't pour. Now when you take one sip, you won't need any more. It's small as a beetle, or big as a whale. Atomic cocktail. Falls a splash all around the place. When you see it coming, just grab your suitcase. It'll send you through the skies like air mail. Atomic cocktail. You push a button, turn the dial. Your work is done for miles and miles. When it hits, it's bound to shake because you feel just like an earthquake. That's the drink that you don't pour. When you take one sip, you won't need any more. You're small as a beetle, or big as a whale. Boom! Atomic cocktail.
Well, I was blown out of bed, hit in the head. Saw 3 flashes of atomic red. Spun around town, shot in the ground. Swirled and swirled, 3 times faster than sound. It was a 50 milliton. It was a 50 milliton. It was a 50 milliton hydro jump, like a red in atomic bomb. Well, a rocket passed me, I climbed up a tree. Just then some got hold of me in the tree. He shot on off, stratosphere, 6,000 miles away from here. It was a 50 milliton. It was a 50 milliton. It was a 50 milliton. A hydro jump, like a great in atomic bomb.
We can't let that happen here, Doc. Not on our watch.
Okay, Johnny, okay.
I'm glad you think it's okay. I thought it was pretty cool
It's
too.
gonna be okay.
And there was a flag, you know, now.